Lonnie Poindexter.
Don't ever ask God for patience. Just say, oh, Lord, help me to be more patient. No, don't do that. Well, why, Lonnie? Why shouldn't I do that? He'll give it to you, but you're not going to like how you get it. Well, Lonnie, what do you mean? How do you get patience? Trials and tribulations, my brethren. That's how you get it.
Lion Chasers. Weekday mornings at 10 Central on Urban Family Talk. Stacy Washington.
And so to this day, I don't eat green beans. If they bring me a plate of food at a restaurant and they've substituted green beans for some other vegetable because the other vegetable is out of season, I will make them bring me a saucer and remove the green beans from my plate and take them off of the table because I cannot abide green beans. And so Chuck Schumer and the Democrats have to sit down to the table and it's loaded up high with green beans and they have to stay there until they've eaten them all. That's the table they set. They boiled the green beans, they picked them, they snapped them, they put them into the steamer, they've cooked them, they seasoned them with salt and pepper, and now they're on the table with a little side of butter, and that's all they're getting, and they're going to have to eat these until they win.
Stacy on the Right. Weekday afternoons at 2 Central on Urban Family Talk. This is Stacy on the Right on Urban Family Talk.
In addition to the troops, the president is also requesting $500 million for border security. But some border state politicians are already saying more help is needed.
I appreciate the additional $1,200 being sent of the Guard as well as additional $500 million. But it's simply not enough.
Under President Obama's border plan, the National Guard will assist with intelligence gathering, surveillance, reconnaissance support, analysis and training, as well as supporting counter-narcotics enforcement. This is not the first time troops have been called upon to assist with border security. In 2006, then-President Bush ordered a similar operation, which allowed border agents to spend more time arresting illegal immigrants. Mr. Obama's announcement comes just weeks after Arizona enacted its controversial new immigration law, which gives police greater authority to question suspected illegal immigrants.
Now, most Republicans do support the president's move, but they say it's not enough to change their opposition to comprehensive immigration reform. Chances of that passing this year still appear bleak. Betty?
CBS's Chip Reed at the White House. Thank you.
Hey, welcome back to Stacy on the Right here on Urban Family Talk at American Family Radio. So you're probably listening to that and thinking, that sounds like, yeah, they were talking about President Obama. So this is a news report from 2010. And so 2010, what was going on? Well, there was a surge in illegal border crossings. And so the president at the time was President Obama, and he was concerned about the national security implications. You remember there was some terrorism going on, and people were really looking at that and saying, well, what can we do? What can we do about this? And so what they did was they sent the troops down to the border. They did so in a very limited fashion. So yes, the troops were there, but they weren't down there actually making any arrests or doing any direct interactions. They were there mainly as a show of force and to support immigrations and customs enforcement. And remember, there's training that you go through to be an ICE employee that you do not go through if you're on active duty. And so people always assume that, well, you know, if you're in the military, you're just a shooter, you're just a killer, you're just like a glorified police officer or something like that. But the reality is the training is very different. What police officers go through, it includes use of force training, hand-to-hand combat, subduing suspects, and interpersonal relations where they're taught how to negotiate with people who are mentally ill or maybe fraught with emotional circumstances or are out of control under the influence of drugs. Active duty service members have much more specialized training because our fighting forces now are much more modernized, much more like everyday office jobs for millions, or I should say hundreds of thousands of people who serve in the military. They serve in an office capacity. And then others have very specific training that goes with the job that they do, which is, working on aircraft or working on Humvees or tanks or, so we're talking about a very specialized military force here. And so just to say, well, we're going to take troops. And when they say troops, they're not actually speaking of active duty troops. They're talking about activating National Guard units and sending them down there. And again, National Guard people actually work a job Monday through Friday, and they drill, which means they put on their uniform and go live on the base and work in their military capacity one weekend a month. Or if they're activated, they'll work for a specific period of time or until they're deactivated. And then they go back to the 1 weekend a month. And those guys have the same level of basic training that they go through or officer training school that they go through if they're not enlisted. But then they also have their specialized training for their mode of service or their job that they do for the military. And so it's not like these people are just automatically going to know how to go down and deal with the very specialized circumstances that exist on the southern border of this country, dealing with people who are coming in illegally. And remember, all of the people who come in, there's as much variance in the types of people who are accessing this country through the southern border as there are in people who live here in this country legally. You have women and children, you have unaccompanied minors, you have grown men who approach the border in groups and singly. And there's a lot of what they're doing has become more streamlined because you have activists like the group that I talked to you about yesterday who actually go down to the Honduras and other places and charge a fee to basically ferry these people through. They guide them through the different countries between wherever they are and our southern border. And for that fee, they bring them to the border and show them how to approach a border agent and say, I'd like to turn myself in. I'd like to apply for asylum. So you're probably wondering, well, how do they know so much about our laws? Well, the internet is a thing, of course, but these are countries that are very poor where most of the citizens don't have access to the internet. But if you have access to a TV or if you know a place where a TV is on, you can turn on a documentary by CNN. And that CNN documentary will teach you exactly what you need to do in order to become an illegal alien in the United States, someone that is very difficult to deport. Who puts that on? I'm not kidding. It's CNN. So you've got, I want to listen to this audio from Beto O'Rourke. This is back in 2014, so still in the Obama years. He said that President Obama's piecemeal approach to DACA, Dreamers, etc., all the different things he was kind of doing with his pen and his phone, that those things actually contributed to the border crisis. It's number 5.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to address the larger context of this issue brought up by you in your opening remarks about what has created the conditions for this crisis that we have right now. And I will acknowledge, I do think that the President's piecemeal administrative approach to this when it comes to the Dreamers or through DACA might contribute to a perception that there are these permisos that are available in the United States. Mr. King's point that given the way that these children are processed and given an order to appear and placed with family in the United States, that may also create the perception. There's also the fact that Congress, in the year and a half that I've been here, has been unable to vote on a comprehensive immigration reform bill. I think that contributes to this issue.
Wow. So he's calling everybody on the carpet, and with good reason. I see no reason why Congress can't get in a room and compromise on immigration. The things that the Democrats are asking for, when you talk about the wild negotiating tactics of President Trump, they're not so wild when you compare them with the negotiating tactics of the Democrats. When you look at the things that they're asking for, whenever they bring up, we want comprehensive immigration reform, they basically want open borders. They want the elimination of any law that would prevent a person from coming here, walking in any access point, whether they're flying in and walking through customs, whether they're arriving here by cruise ship or boat, whether they're hiding in freight, whether they're crossing the southern border, whether they're swimming up to the border after jumping out of a speedboat, however they arrive, Democrats feel, well, they're here now, so they're citizens. That's crazy. Imagine if all of the people showing up at the border were Republicans. Just think it through for a second. Imagine if all of the people coming from South America, from Honduras, and all of those people. Imagine if when they showed up, they immediately put on Trump hats and they were like, woo, we are just so glad to be here in Trump country and all we want to do is vote for Donald Trump. What do you think the Democrats would do? What do you think their reaction to that would be? they would shut that border down. They would be like, oh no, we can't have these people coming in here. We can't have them rolling through here, coming and getting their Trump shirts and their Trump hats and their Trump koozies and running around talking about Donald Trump this, Donald Trump that, because they'll guarantee him a win in 2020. They'll help him keep the House and the Senate in the midterms. These people don't have the right to vote. They're not citizens. That is the first thing they would say. Don't believe me? Look at what the Democrats did under President Obama. President Obama eliminated wet foot, dry foot. Wet foot, dry foot enabled Cubans who came here to America by a certain way to stay here and receive asylum and become citizens. Well, Cuban Americans are coming from a socialist country, a dictatorship. And so when they get here, the first thing they want to do is get their hands on some freedom, and they are reliably Republican voters. And so these are not huge numbers of them who are coming to the country. I mean, it's not statistically significant to the greater population of America, but they are heavily concentrated in Southern Florida, and they were reliably Republican. And so what did Obama do? He cut that spigot off. He was like, no, we ain't gonna have these people coming up in here voting for Republicans. No, we ain't gonna have that. But we'll allow a whole lot of people from South America to come here, because those people vote for Democrats. So this isn't really about loving immigrants or caring for them or wanting to see them have a better life in America or giving them a piece of the American dream or hating borders. Democrats will love a border if it stops people who vote for Republicans from getting in here. I mean, it's just, there just really is no, there's no way you can stand up against that assertion. This isn't about what people keep saying. It's the feelings. It's the love of people. No, it's the love of votes. It's the love of having people here who vote reliably for a party that they support. So yeah, we had that. And there's been more immigration type things that have been, the developments have just been coming hard and fast. But I want to give you some kind of breaking news. You guys know Kamala Harris. She's a senator, and she often will have these kind of really nasty interactions with people in hearings. People will come from the Trump administration, and they'll come into these hearings, and she just rips into them and treats them like they're hostile witnesses. And so the question that's been tossed around is, because Barack Obama said she was pretty, and a lot of people feel like she is that new face for the Democrats because she's younger and she's, very presentable, although she's a radical. But what do Californians know of radicals? They don't, because they're all, the Democratic apparatus in California is very radical. So she was on the Ellen show today, and she appeared to, looks pretty solid to me, that she joked about killing President Trump, Vice President Mike Pence, or Attorney General Jeff Sessions. So here's how it broke down. Ellen DeGeneres asked Harris, if you had to be stuck on an elevator with either President Trump, Mike Pence, or Jeff Sessions, who would it be? And then she said, does one of us have to come out alive? She responded, and then cracked at her own joke. Now, I personally think that's kind of funny because, it's a joke. But imagine if someone on the right had said that. Imagine if you'd had, Sarah Huckabee Sanders on The View, and they asked her that question about President Obama, Michelle Obama, or Joe Biden. And you guys, which one would you prefer to be stuck on an elevator with? What do you think would happen if Sarah Huckabee Sanders said, well, do we have to come out? How many people come out alive? Does one of us have to come out alive? What do you think would have happened? She needs to be fired. She needs to step down. That is exactly what would have been the reaction. So the double standards persist. It's just not going away. And I think it's crazy pants that she's going to totally get away with that, because everyone's going to say she was just kidding. But it's not okay to make fun of the fact that David Hogg did not get into the universities that he wanted to get into. Somehow that's wrong. But joking about people dying on an elevator, that's okay. So other big news today is that the trade deficit hit a 10-year high, and announcement or news out of Reuters that China is holding treasuries and keeping the nuclear option open to themselves in a U.S. trade war. So I want to, one more time, let's reiterate this. People are acting as if this trade war is something new that's just occurring right now. It's just all of a sudden, now we're in a trade war because Donald Trump said he's putting tariffs on some goods. We've been in a trade war. The Chinese have been stealing our intellectual property. They've been stealing our ideas and our actual products and making knockoffs and selling them all over Asia. That cuts into American sales. We've been putting up with that because people have been willing to put up with it because they've been able to make such large profits on the stateside market because they're able to mark their products up because they're made so cheaply in China. So they've been willing to make the trade-off. And what Donald Trump is saying is that the trade deficits that exist, that he's no longer willing to put up with that, along with the theft of the intellectual property and the knockoff goods. He's not willing to do it anymore. And so there's already a trade war. He's changing the dynamic. So I'm not saying I think it's going to work. I don't know. But if you're already in a war with someone and you realize that you're on the losing end and that things aren't going to change unless you make a change, then when you make the change, everyone starts yelling at you and treating you like you're the bad guy. Are you going to listen to that? I'm not. I don't care what China says they're going to do. If they want to rumble, let's try it out for a little bit. The worst that can happen is that we have to go back to the status quo as it was a few months before. Yeah, we need to make some changes here. And that's what the president's trying to do. I'm willing to take a wait and see attitude on it. All right, that's hour one. When we get back, we're going to have our next guest and so much more here on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk. Stay tuned for fantastic messages at the top of the hour, news and information, and we'll be right back.
Urban Family Talk. Secular progressives in the United States have worked to alter the very nature of our republic.
For the progressives, there are no longer any God-given natural rights.
AFA Executive Vice President Ed Vitagliano helps you understand the progressive threat to the American Republic. Get your copy of this powerful DVD from the AFA Cultural Institute at afastore.net. Truth, wisdom, empowerment. Urban Family Talk.